Jai Ma, Durga Devi here. So I've been processing a lot since my last video on trauma, and the way I process is by thinking and talking and some journaling, but not always a lot. So I just feel I'm in the flow of it, so I'm making a video. So what has come up for me since the last video I made on trauma was listening to that little bit about at the beginning that Ram Dass talked about. How when we have fear, it creates separateness. And looking back on my life at an early age, I recognized I didn't have a lot of fear of other people. I was very trusting. Some would say very naive. And I felt like I was protected, that God protected me, God loved me, and God wouldn't let me be in a situation that was dangerous. So I'm saying this because sometimes this over-trusting, this open-heartedness with feeling connected to everyone and everything can put us in a very vulnerable position where then we really need to trust our intuition. And sometimes we have a gut feeling like this isn't safe, this isn't the right relationship, or this isn't the right decision, and we don't listen to it. So that's my preface for this conversation, because from a very young age, I felt very trusting. And even now, with everything that's happened to me, I would say I'm a very trusting person, and a lot has happened to me. So I'm going to share one story of one event in which I was too trusting and how I really survived the situation. But I did push it down, meaning I didn't process it. So this talk is me processing it. I wanted to move to California, and I was determined to move there because when I was in college, I wanted to transfer to the art center in Pasadena. My parents wouldn't let me. I wanted to major in film, and they said, no, when you graduate college, you can do what you want. So I basically said, as soon as I graduate, I am moving out there. And I didn't have friends out there. My aunt was living in San Diego, but I was going to the LA area. So I had one somewhat connection who was a friend of a former boyfriend. I was at the current time living with the manager of an apartment. She had an extra room in her apartment that I was renting. And she was older than I was, wasn't super steady, and we were both just barely surviving. We would go to the grocery store and ask the guy, could you cut that cabbage in half so we could buy it? Because we never had money. So what happened to me was I was dating somebody, and he had an apartment, and I was going out to dinner with him, and I parked my car in front of his place. We came home from dinner, and there were cops all over where my car was parked. Ambulance, cop cars, everything. And the first thought I had was, oh my gosh, my car. Because I just quit my job like the day before, and I needed to find a new job. And that's the only time I ever quit a job without having another job. Well, one other time I guess I did. But I was working at Express Clothing Store as an assistant manager. They had promoted me to manager. I'd been there a year. They wanted to promote me to partner. And I had been interviewing this whole time working there, like trying to get into the advertising field. And I just couldn't get a break. And I looked super young. I was 22. And I looked like I was 15, maybe. Anyways, so my car was all I had. So I get out, I walk over, and it was my car. Someone had flown off the road, hit the curb, flown up in the air, and landed on my car, just my car. And it looked like a bomb went off. And I just started crying, and I was so upset. And the cop's like, oh, insurance will pay for a new one. I'm like, no, my dad bought me that car. It's gonna go to my dad. And that was kind of the beginning of understanding, like, I'm not so protected. So anyways, I ended up, after some other things that happened with my roommate, where she got into trouble and ended up the cops breaking down our door to our apartment, I ended up moving in with my boyfriend. So we got an apartment together. And during this claim, this all happened within like weeks' time. During this claim of my car, I had a breakdown when I went to talk to the insurance agent about the claim for my car, and he hired me on the spot. And I said, I don't know anything about insurance. What am I going to do here? And he said, oh, you can just answer the phones. I said, really? I said, okay, can I wear jeans to work? Because everyone was in suits. He said, yeah, you can wear jeans to work. He was like a father figure to me, like really trying to take care of me, I felt like. So I really trusted him. And there was a younger salesman there who came in who detested that I was there wearing jeans and drawing, because Bob, who hired me, said, yeah, you can bring your materials and work on your portfolio, whatever you need to do while you're working here. So I was doing that, and this other guy was like so miffed at me. Anyways, I knew I had at least some stability for a little bit, and Bob would let me leave an interview, and he was trying to help me. So one of his clients came in and said, hey, I could really help you. Let's set up a meeting and you can show me your portfolio and I can, connect you. And so I was like, oh, great, so we exchanged numbers, and I felt like, Bob set it up, so it must be okay. So he told me, we made a time to meet, and he told me to meet him at his office. Well, when I showed up, it was really like an apartment. And I should have known right there. But I really wanted to get a job. And so I went into the apartment, and it was freaky right away. I just knew I'm in a dangerous situation. But at that time, I was in the door, and he locked the door. And I see cameras set up and a gun on the table, and pictures of celebrities covering the wall. There's not an inch of wall space. And I just had to calm down and think, how can I survive this? How can I get out of this alive? I'm not going to die here. So there was sexual assault. I had to just get through it. And when I got out, I pushed it down. I didn't talk about it. I wanted to erase it from my memory because I felt ashamed and embarrassed that I would even be so naive to think this guy's really going to help me. So I never talked about it. And he then like stalked me. And it ended up that my boyfriend, who I was living with, kind of on an unrelated topic, he wanted to get married and I didn't. He moved out one day without even telling me and took everything, including my refrigerator. And this guy is stalking me. It was a really bad situation. And I'm telling you because I survived, and I did get stronger, and I did what I had to do to protect myself. And it didn't close my heart for very long. I was still able to have relationships afterward. But there's a lot that happened. What I wanted to talk about was, because I had this sense of trust and interconnectedness, I was naive. I really thought like people were good and this guy is going to help me out. I also didn't think about that I might be in a dangerous situation until I was in the dangerous situation. And I did have like kind of a weird feeling though, even before I found out it was an apartment. And I didn't trust it. These are really important signs to pay attention to in your own body. And this is where, you know, at 22, I wanted to prove to my parents I could do it. I could make it, and I was good, and I was going to be a big art director, and, you know, just wait and see. And that was all ego. But I didn't know any better at that age. Even though I had some awakenings early, I wasn't enlightened by any means. So I didn't have a lot of fear growing up. So in some ways, I didn't have like a defense system in place. And so this was one of my early events that started to build up some type of defense system. And I'm not saying defense is an armor around my heart, because I still trusted people. I still got hurt. I still got abused after this situation. But I did start to think about, I need to start speaking up. I need to start talking. And part of what has been my journey has been being able to verbalize things and talk to people. And so from 22 until Shivadas and I got together, which I was 42, I think, around 42, long time, I couldn't express these situations or my feelings. And he was the first one that I could talk to about some of the trauma and the abuse. So I'm sharing this because it takes a long time, you know, and you're not alone. Other people have gone through it and have survived it. So this is just one of my situations, and I feel like with this situation, what needs to be processed is not just talking about it, but then releasing the shame. Releasing, you know, I can't believe I allowed myself to be put in that position. Can't believe I didn't talk about it to somebody. I can't believe I didn't report it to the police, you know? I just wanted to disappear. And I did. I moved out of my apartment. I found an apartment I could afford, which was also not in a safe area. But I kind of disappeared so that guy couldn't find me. I got a job. I left the agency, the insurance agency. I found a job and I started again. I started over. But I didn't process. So I'm sharing some tools, like if you are in a dangerous situation right now, even in your home, because I was also married to someone who raped me after this happened. If you're in a situation like that, you just need to get out. You need to get out and leave. And you need to find a safe space. I'm sharing these videos. These are very real. This is a very vulnerable thing to talk about. But I think it's important to have these conversations. So these series are very difficult conversations for me. And I hope that if you need to have a conversation, you have someone you can talk to, someone safe. And I am available to have conversations with you. I do coaching. I do one-on-one Zoom. And I am available, and I will make myself available for you. Jai Ma.